Dr. Mahadew sir, I have told you about Vijay MT register. She has joined today.
Yeah, it's okay. Okay, we're going to start now. We're recording as a matter of fact. Hold
Okay,
on.
okay.
Assalamu alaikum, namaste. We are pleased to welcome all of you from the various parts of the world and different time zones from which you are zooming in. I am Shakira Mohammed from Trinidad and Tobago, a teacher for the past 17 years. And ladies and gentlemen, this is our 234th edition of our ICC Thought Leaders Forum. We wish to sincerely thank all of you who have contributed in the many ways that you do to the success of this ongoing Pan-Indo-Caribbean and Pan-Indian Diaspora Global Project. For 233 unbroken continuous weeks, we have been here every single Sunday. And in the past 4 years, 5 months and 2 weeks, we have featured 1,064 presenters from all parts of the world speaking on 233 topics. Ladies and gentlemen, this is a weekly forum being hosted by the Indo-Caribbean Cultural Center, a legally registered research and publishing company operating since 2010. Today, we are pleased to be supported by Kamala and Dr. Tiwari. In order to improve and continue this weekly program, we seek your suggestions and volunteerism. We thank you for your donations, and each time you contribute, your name will be placed on our poster and all promotional materials, and you can contact Dr. Mahadew for details. Ladies and gentlemen, let me introduce our moderator today, who is Shalama Mohammed, the co-director of this ICC Zoom platform, who is a business teacher and researcher from Trinidad and Tobago. She obtained her master's degree in business psychology from Franklin University in the USA. Shalama, welcome.
Thanks so much, Shakir. Assalamu alaikum, namaste, and a warm welcome to all of you. It's very, very rainy in Trinidad, and I hope it's better where you are. So thanks so much for choosing to be here with us. This program is being recorded on Zoom and live streamed on the YouTube channel of the Indo-Caribbean Cultural Center. Welcome to all of you on YouTube at this time. To avoid intrusions from trolls, our IT manager has muted everyone. Speakers, please do not admit anyone, do not unmute anyone, and do not allow anyone to share your screen. Thanks so much for cooperating. Yesterday, November 16th, marked the 164th anniversary of the arrival of 152,184 Indian indentured laborers to South Africa. Over the period 1860 to 1911, they came. In commemoration of the observation of Indian Arrival Day, we welcome Dr. Betty Govindan of South Africa to read to you a poem authored by herself. Welcome, Dr. Betty. You're not, can you unmute, please? Dr. Betty, can you unmute, please?
Yes. Unmute, yes, sir. No, right, no.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Can you hear me?
Yes.
Thank you, and greetings to everybody. It's good to be part of this weekly family, and thank you for the moments to share this poem. This poem was written last year for the November 16th Commemorative of the Sea. And in the poem, I describe the sacred event, and I suggest that we are all rooted in history, in histories of land and sea. And we also inhabit a world beyond borders. And my plea in this is to be connected with the cosmos and to live in as one planetary family. So this is my poem. Marigolds for the arrival of the 1860 indentured laborers 64 years ago. On the seashore of endless worlds, we gather at the water's edge. The painted sky above benignly beholds the unfolding human tableau as the wind blows sand into our and the incessant waves waft in, waft out. Ancient sea histories wash across the shore, mingling with histories of the land. Billows of sugarcane heaving, breaking, crashing in perpetual motion. We are gathered today to offer marigolds to the Indian Ocean, the seas that wafted our ancestors to this land, scattered in the gales of continents, in the currents of colonies. Our oblations of gold buffeted by the waves, our histories crash, collide, merge as seagulls fly overhead. We are of the earth and sky and air, our homage of gold, flotsam and jetsam under the heavens, ceaselessly rising and falling in the dance of sacred remembrance. And I offer here to you the marigolds that we had yesterday at the Durban seaside front. Thank you.
How lovely, Dr. Betty. Thank you so much for sharing that, and I hope the ancestors are well pleased.
Thank you.
Ladies and gentlemen, today we are talking about business, and we are saying from poverty to progress. We want to discuss proven business strategies in the Indian diaspora. The indentured period was characterized by labor, consumption, and contradictions. Despite irregular payment of wages and the exploitative use of indebtedness in British Guyana, for example, Henry Kirk observed that many Indians continued to live in the same wattle and daub hut, wear the same dirty dhoti, and eat the same vegetable curry and rice despite amassing a considerable amount of money. How were they able to save, and what were the indentures saving for? Bronkhurst, a Wesleyan missionary in British Guyana, sought to replace what he saw as immoral and unproductive habits of the Indians by promoting the use of government savings banks, arguing that their adoption would save some of the money presently squandered in drink and narcotics. The Black-owned San Fernando Gazette argued that Trinidad's Indian population were a worthless and filthy set whose sole aim was to drain their temporary abode, Trinidad, as much as possible of its coins before returning to India. The indentured migrants did not all return to India. They shaped the economic value of the receiving British colonies, and today we hope to hear how they did so and rose from poverty to influence the contemporary business class. Ladies and gentlemen, let me introduce our first speaker. Dr. Vijaya Kumar Kamar is from India. With over 32 years of experience in international business development, he specializes in forging, casting, and CNC machining. He's a global speaker on culture and economics, management, and agriculture. Welcome, Dr. Kamar.
Yeah, thank you, Shalima Mamoji. Let me share with my PPT. Okay. Hope I am visible. My PPT is visible?
Yes, it is. You can go ahead.
Okay. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you. Okay. Thank you very much for giving me an opportunity on international forum. Today we are speaking about from poverty to progress, proven business strategies in the Indian diaspora. Let me introduce to the subject first. Poverty is an universal problem which has existed right from our civilization. According to the Nobel Prize winner, South African leader Sri Nelson Mandela ji, poverty is not natural, it is man-made. Poverty is a deep-rooted problem that continues to affect a large portion of the world's population today. It touches on several aspects of human life, including but not limited to political, economic, and social elements. That means the whole gambit of human life is covered with these poverty lines. There are many efforts to make poor families to prosper. United Nations and World Bank made attempts after attempts to continue to do so to eradicate the poverty. Now, let us understand what poverty means and what the prosperity means. Poverty is a state or the situation in which a person or a group of people don't have enough means to satisfy their basic needs. Poverty can have many angles like environmental, legal, social, economic, and political causes and effects. There are two main measures to evaluate the poverty. According to the United Nations, the definition of poverty they give is absolute poverty, which compares income against the amount needed to meet basic personal needs, such as food, clothing, and shelter, etc., etc. This is the absolute poverty. The relative poverty is a measures when a person cannot meet the minimum level of living standards compared to others in the same time in the same place. This poverty is as narrated in 12th century by one of our Sharana. Sharana means devotee of God Shiva. Ambigara Chaudaya. Yeah, he is a boatman. He says about the poverty. Let me first tell in Kannada in our own language. Then I'll translate it to English. ಶರಣ ಅಂಬಿಗರ ಚೌಡಯ್ಯ ಸೆಸ್ ಬಡತನಕ್ಕೆ ಒಂಬುವ ಚಿಂತೆ ಉಣಲಾರದೆ ಉಡುವ ಚಿಂತೆ ಉಡಲಾದರೆ ಇಡುವ ಚಿಂತೆ ಇಡಲಾದರೆ ಹೆಂಡಿರ ಚಿಂತೆ ಹೆಂಡಿರಾದರೆ ಮಕ್ಕಳ ಚಿಂತೆ ಮಕ್ಕಳಾದರೆ ಬದುಕಿನ ಚಿಂತೆ ಬದುಕಾದರೆ ಕೇಡಿನ ಚಿಂತೆ ಕೇಡಾದರೆ ಮರಣದ ಚಿಂತೆ ಇಂತಿ ಹಲವು ಚಿಂತೆಯಲ್ಲಿ ಇಪ್ಪವರ ಕಂಡೆನು ಶಿವನ ಚಿಂತನೆ ಎಲ್ಲಿದ್ದವರೊಬ್ಬರನ್ನೂ ಕಾಣನೆಂದಾತ ನಮ್ಮ ಅಂಬಿಗರ ನಿಜ ಶರಣ. Now let me translate this. He said what he says about the poverty is poverty worries about the food to eat. If food is found, then worry about the clothes. If the clothes are found, then worry about the savings. Having saved enough, then worry about the wife. Having a wife, then worry about the children. Having children, then worry about the prosperous life. Having prosperous life, then worry about losing the wealth. Being lost the wealth, then worry about the death. Thus I see men drowned in worries, but not even one worrying about the Lord Shiva. Thus says the Lord Shiva means it's a culture. Thus says true Sharana Ambigara Chaudaya. That means from a point by point, Ambigara Chaudaya, the Sharana says about poverty in 12th century. That is a very phenomenal point. Now, according to UN's 2030 Agenda for Sustainable Goals, they have tabulated 17 goals. Out of 17 goals, the first goal itself is the end poverty in all its forms everywhere. Eradicate extreme poverty for all people everywhere, currently measured as the people living on a less than $1.25 a day. Implement nationality appropriate social protection systems and measures for all, including floors, and by 2030 achieve sustainable coverage of the poor and the vulnerables. Create sound policy frameworks at the national, regional, and international levels based on pro-poor and gender-sensitive development strategies to support accelerated investment in poverty eradication actions. United Nations, they have taken it very seriously and gave responsible to each and every nation to end the poverty, because it is one of the menace in our universe as of now. Now, what are all the causes of the poverty? There are many points we can quote here. The few I have tabulated here. Population explosion. In the last 50 years, 2.2% increase in the populations per year. Even in India, it is around 2 to 2.5% rise in every year. Low agricultural productivity. Earlier, it was around 28 to 29%. Now it has fallen to 17% in recent years. Inefficient resource utilization. Resources are plenty, but the efficient use of resources is one of the main cause of poverty. Low rate of economic development. It is now as low as 3% in the most of the countries. Especially after the Ukraine war, it has come down as low as 3% in the most of the countries. Unemployment rate. Very, very phenomenal cause of poverty is the unemployment rate. It is around 0.5% per annum. Maybe it is due to the population explosion also, but there are many reasons why poverty is increasing. Lack of capital and entrepreneurship. Entrepreneurship is one of the great human ability, but it is now reducing. Social factors are many, like religious and so on. Colonial exploitation. Still, there are countries where the colonial exploitation still is happening. Climatic factors like floods, earthquakes, cyclones, and wars. Now, this is a property trap mapping. Low savings, low investment, low economic growth, low income. This is the poor growth. And this leads to a poor development, low productivity, low income, education, and health criteria. Low human capital is, this is a poverty trap that we have to come out with this trap. Now let us understand what we mean by progress. The word progress is very, very complicated. It has many facets of the human capital. Progress is humanity's greatest achievement. The definition of progress is movement to an improved or more developed state or to a forward position. That means day by day we have to improve ourselves in the economic front or in the status front as well. Progress is not a matter of optimism. This is not optimism. It is an empirical fact of history that we need to understand what we mean by progress. It is conceived by seeing the world through headlines rather than data. A lot of people use the data to evaluate the progress, but we have to see overall improvement as a progress. There are many theories and keys to progress so far postulated. Now, how to measure the progress? It is the per capita GDP, gross development production, gross production, the UN Human Development Index, urbanization and slums, education and literacy rate, sanitation, electricity and drinking water supply, diseases and life expectancy. Earlier, life expectancy was around 89 to 90 years. Now it has reduced around to 67 to between 67 to 75 years. Agricultural production and prices. So this is very, very one of the progress measuring phenomena. Slavery and forced labor. There are many measuring progresses, but some of the things, important things I have tabulated here. Now let us understand the economic history. From 0 to 2000, one of the greatest economists, Angus Madison, tabulated this economic history, 0 to 2000 CE. The Organization of Economic Cooperation and Development requested Angus Madison to do research on this. He was an emeritus professor at the Faculty of Economics at the University of Groningen. Angus Madison and his team of 79 scholars, they have researched on the world economic development from 0 to around 2000 years economic history they have tabulated, and they have published their research work in the form of a book, The World Economy and the Millennium Perspective. It is very interesting to know that this research says in India and in its diaspora, through devotion. Devotion means bhakti movement. The Kranti, what we say in Hindi, brought revolution of disciplined and integrated economy. The reports also says while considering the tremendous influence of religion on the Indian culture, it was a sound team of persons belonging to different occupations and professions. Every occupation lead to a sound economic results. This is what the World Economy Millennium Perspective Research book says. That's a very, very phenomenal quote. Now, coming to the center point of the program, what are all the key strategies to be adopted for the progress? I have tabulated 6. There are 25 strategies are there. Out of that, I have mentioned only 6 key strategies because of the time limit. Efficient food production and distribution. This is the very, very important strategy. Cities with the skill-based professionals, decentralized political and economical powers, decentralized religious and ideological belief systems. Each country must have one high-valued industry to export. This is very, very interesting to know. Efficient use of fuels and fossil fuels. In this modern age, use of fuels is very, very important thing. Now, strategy number 1, agriculture sector. Why I have taken it as a number 1 means without food we cannot survive. I'll quote one metaphor in this presentation. In Russia, Joseph Stalin started agricultural cultivation and rapid industrialization to enhance the growth in 1921. This was opposed by agricultural scientists Zinoviev and Kamenev. Zinoviev and Kamenev proposed that scale of economy and scale of production is not applicable to agriculture. See, as per the industrial revolution, what Joseph Stalin started, they have opposed and they say scale of economy and scale of production is not applicable to agriculture. Do not regard agriculture as an industry. Take it as a culture. This is what Zinoviev and Kamenev scientists said. For opposing his ideologies or the policies, Joseph Stalin and Kamenev were killed in 24/8/1936. This was the uh, extreme step taken by Joseph Stalin. So when agricultural scientists translated their writings in 2001 and found Zinoviev and Kamenev were right. All over the world, agricultural scientists agreed that agri sector is a growth engine for any country. In India and in diaspora, till today, agriculture sector is treated as a culture. So we have a rich culture of agriculture, which is the mother of all cultures. So I would like to quote one verse from Basveshwara's Vachana. So it goes like this. That is, Basveshwara says about the prosperity of agriculture sector in 12th century itself. ನಾನು ಆರಂಭವ ಮಾಡುವೆನೆಯ ಗುರುಪೂಜೆಗೆಂದು, ನಾನು ವ್ಯವಹಾರವ ಮಾಡುವೆನೆಯ ಲಿಂಗಾರ್ಚನೆಗೆಂದು, ನಾನು ಪರಸೇವೆಯನ್ನು ಮಾಡುವೆನೆಯ ಜಂಗಮ ದಾಸೋಹಕ್ಕೆಂದು, ನಾನಾವಾವ ಕರ್ಮಗಳ ಮಾಡಿದಡೆಯು ಆ ಕರ್ಮ ಫಲಭೋಗವ ನೀ ಕೊಡುವೆ ಎಂಬುದನ್ನ ಬಲ್ಲೆನು. ನೀ ಕೊಟ್ಟ ದ್ರವ್ಯವ ನಿಮಗಲ್ಲದೆ ಮತ್ತೊಂದಕ್ಕೆ ಮಾಡನು, ನಿಮ್ಮ ಸೊಮ್ಮಿಂಗೆ ಸಲ್ಲಿಸುವನು ನಿಮ್ಮಾಣೆ ಕೂಡಲ ಸಂಗಮ ದೇವ. That's what he says. Now I'll translate it into English. He says, I work in agriculture and I worship agriculture. I take agriculture as a culture because agriculture is the mother of all cultures. This is the best thing to adopt strategy to march towards prosperity from poor to progressively. See, this is what our 12th century says about the agriculture. Now, the second point I would like to mention here is the city developments. It is a key to prosperity for any nation. Skill is very important to a person in shaping up a prosperous nation. ability to cooperate, specialize, adopt new skills, implement new ideas, constantly improve themselves is the key to success and prosperity. Indian diaspora always developed skills from centuries, artisans such as carpenters, masons, blacksmiths, goldsmiths, etc. And they are the independent skilled workers. These people developed cities with the dignity of labor and commitment. Under the influence of liberalization, privatization, and globalization, we call it as an LPG. Developing cities having entrepreneurs and skilled professionals is a key strategy towards prosperity. In economic terminology, there is a saying, Asiatic method of production, wherein all the production and consumptions takes place in one village. That is a trade-based city. That tagline we can give to this. A famous economist, Dr. Peter Drucker, says about the entrepreneur's development. So an entrepreneur is the one who always searches for changes, responds to it, and exploits it as an opportunity. Innovation is the specific tool of entrepreneurs, the means by which they exploit changes as an opportunity for a different business and or services. This is what this thing. Uh, to substantiate this, I would like to quote the history of Japan. After the destruction in 1945, Japan rose to a giant economically developed nations. How we have to develop our nations, we have to see from Japan. In 1998, OECD requested Japan to give a report about its phenomenal progress as an economic giant. They gave a report in 20 volumes. In the first volume and the first paragraph, they say they gave a profound lines. I'd like to read it as it is quoted in that first volume. After the destruction, we have not started engineering or medical colleges or any other technical training centers to rebuild our country. In fact, we gave responsibility to our own people who are carpenters, masons, blacksmiths, weavers, and so on, and depended on them. This is a very, very profound lines. All these artisans, they have built the country. These people built economically strong nation, and much more than that. They went on to start engineering and medical colleges, which younger generation carry forward the legacy of nation building. This is how to develop a city or a country with the artisans, with the skilled laborers.
Okay, Dr. Kamar,
Yeah,
could
ma'am.
your closing comments, please?
I'll close it. Okay. With this, I conclude only by saying, with all the adverse economic exploitation for over 800 years, India and the Indian diaspora emerged as an economical superpower mainly because of the strong fundamentals in the culturally driven economy. The effective strategies India produced from ancient times make India as a nation of innovations. We have given extremely progressive strategies, as I have quoted 12th century Basaveshwara's verses and the economy and the Vijayanagara Empire stories. At present, we have a fiscally honest Prime Minister, Sri Narendra Modi ji, who doesn't care about political consequences and only bother about the country, can turn into an economic giant in coming years. Let us say India first. These are some of the references. Thank you very much for giving me an opportunity. Thanks a lot.
Thank you very much. A very insightful presentation, sir, filled with data. At
Thank
this
you.
point in time, we'd like to invite members of the audience who may have questions for you to please go ahead and pose those. I invite you all to raise your electronic hands. You'll find that in the reactions button at the base of your computer screen. And Mr. Ramnaresh Dwarka has a question for you. Go ahead, please, Mr. Dwarka.
Thank you very much. Thank you, Dr. Kumar, for your presentation. Very comprehensive. I know if you had more time, you could tell us much more.
Thank you.
However, I sat from the beginning to the end and I'm thinking, of Gandhi's statement, there's enough in the world for every man's needs, but there's not enough for one man's greed.
Yes,
And
yes.
in the Indian tradition, we know the term, and I'll say it in Hindi, jiske haath mein hogi lathi, bhains wahi jayega. Who has
Yes.
power? We've seen what is happening with Israel and Palestine today.
Yes.
So that while we're talking about the rudiments of economics, I think we need to be concerned with a higher philosophy, how to change, because we have seen this. India was one of the top countries, production countries in the world until the British came in. and reduced it to almost nothing. So while agriculture is important and the mechanics of prosperity and all of that is important and all of that, but how we do deal with these higher needs, these psychological barriers that has come up. I don't know if you want to respond to that, please.
Yeah, right. You said rightly. The our universe can supply our needs, not the heat. This thing, greeds. So we have to be very, very careful when we quote our agricultural products. So due to this hybrid seeds and use of heavy chemicals to the soil is eroding in a so much uh, period of this thing. It is eroding very fastly. My daughter working doing a research on the soil rejuvenation, Srimati Nagarakshita VK. She is doing research on how to rejuvenate the soil. She has done almost 2 years work. It is almost in the complete end. So this government of India, her research work, government of India, taking all over the India. So this has to be our goal: how to rejuvenate the soil, how to bring down the effectiveness of the products. So that is the main key to progress as of now. The second thing is as I said, how to develop our cities. The skilled labor we are lacking, that has to be improved. Thank you, sir. This, I think, I have made a significant points. Thank you, sir.
Thank you very much, Dr. Kamar. We have a second question for you from Dr. Ruzan Kanhai. Dr.
Okay.
Kanhai, please.
Okay. Thank you. Thank you very much, Dr. Kumar. You've given us a really good overview and a really good history of how to think about poverty and how to think about progress. And, you've given us some key markers of how we measure progress in a community, how we measure human development, urbanization, and so on. And my question is more, does your study take into consideration that even if it seems that the progress index is higher, so there's less poverty, does it take into consideration pockets of people who are not part of the progress for different reasons? For example, let's say drug and opiate abuse, or intergenerational trauma, so that even when there are opportunities available, these people are not able to progress or to take advantage of the opportunities that are there. So where do you fit groups or individuals into the broad picture of how much progress there is?
Okay. Thank you, ma'am, for your very insightful question. You mentioned about drug abuse. You mentioned about the progress index. Oh, this is a very, very vast subject. If you go deep into this, the very first menace, what is the population explosion? The next is when we develop the cities, there are many slums are creating. Eradicating the slums by giving opportunity for the employment is the next step. First is the agricultural point, which is phenomenally we have to improve. So the second is the population explosion, creating the chaos in the economic front that leads to slums in the bigger cities that has to be removed. If you see right from the ancient times, you can say the right from civilization, moving from a village to city, that means for the work. If you create jobs in the villages itself, the movement from the city to from village to city will reduce. That's what our government as of now is doing. Instead of going to cities, you will get the work in the village itself. These are the 2 points answers for your questions. Thank you, ma'am.
Thank you.
Thank you so much, Dr. Kamar. We really appreciate your time and your efforts and, of course, the info that you brought to us today.
Thank you, ma'am. Thank you.
Ladies and gentlemen, we move on now to our second speaker. This is Dr. Dewanand Mahadew of the Netherlands. He's originally from Suriname. He's a global executive and versatile networker with business experience on 6 continents in more than 60 countries and across industries. He's also the founder of New Economy Strategies. Welcome, Dr. Mahadew.
Yes, good afternoon to everyone, or good night wherever you are. Let me share my screen. Yes, can you see my screen?
It's coming up to us now. Yes, perhaps
Yeah.
you'd like to put it into slideshow.
Yeah.
Yes, perfect.
Yeah. Okay, so I will once again, good afternoon to everyone, or good morning, or wherever you are. So I will share some insights about from poverty to progress. And I was asked to talk a bit about what's happened in the Indian diaspora on this area. So basically, if we talk about poverty or about progress or about societies, we need to first understand a bit more about what is life. And life is complex, as Dr. Kumar just now explained to us also. But we all know that people from all over the world, regardless who they are, their origin, their religion, their ethnicity, or from wherever they are, they actually tend to pay meaning to their action. They want to assign something to it. People don't want to do things just like that. And that justification can be for themselves, but mainly for the community around them. So I don't want to do bad things because I think it's a shame for my parents, or it's a shame for my brother, or my wife will not like it. So our life, therefore, is mainly influenced by the rules, actually, and the behavior of the immediate environment that we are part of. And our upbringing and the social control mechanisms that are around us, they define actually the choices that we make, the paths that we take, who we become in life, what we achieve, and the impact, positive or negative, that we create and leave behind for humanity. So at the end, poverty, and from poverty to progress, we all get opportunities. It's a matter of to which level are we able, or were we ready, or we wanted to make the efforts to take that opportunity also. So when we talk about our community, well, I don't want to use Indian diaspora because India is more a kind of a nationality and we are more culture related. So I prefer to talk about Hindustani. So we have Hindu and Hindustanis. Hindus are people who have Hinduism as a philosophy of life. And Hindustanis are people who have their roots in the Indus Valley and actually to a large extent share the vision of the philosophy of the Hindus, but they can be from any other religion. We have actually 3 elements that define our life and makes our life actually slightly different than the life of others like Western cultures and other people. The first thing is that we believe in reincarnation or a day of judgments. Simply said, it's that we think that we all will have to pay or we will be rewarded for our actions. And especially reincarnation is something that is important to us because it's a concept that says to us or that learns us that we humans are composed of an immortal soul that temporarily lives in a mortal body. So we are an endless piece element in an ending life. The body comes, the body comes into being, it exists and it perishes. The second thing that we have to take into account for us in our culture is dharma, and dharma means doing the right things related to honesty, integrity, justice, actual intentions behind your actions. And we have the karmas that are our actions and deeds. So I will try to illustrate how in our diaspora, we took these elements into account in our road from poverty to progress. If I look to myself, so I was born in 1965 in a rural area of the former plantation paradise in Nickerie in Suriname. And our life, actually, my grandparents were Girmitias. They came early 1900 as indentured labor to work on the plantations. And in 1917, when the indentured labor actually was banned, the local economy in Suriname declined very quickly. And what the Girmitias did, they decided to focus on agriculture, and they moved to rural areas that were accessible only through footpaths. So the story of Dr. Kumar, that agriculture is important, is the key basis. This was exactly what these people did. They focused only on agriculture in the first place. And transport was that they done by boat or by donkey cart. Land was cleared and cultivated with garden tools and using bulls. But despite all these impossibilities, the Girmitias, they saw opportunities and possibilities because they thought, we decide which path we will take, we decide what we can do. So they moved to rural, remote areas where actually they had pretty much freedom to develop themselves. This is the story of Suriname then. So actually when they came, their first task was to work for 5 years as labor, in this case on sugarcane plantations, where actually they started to develop themselves. Women also were equally involved with work, and the women were doing basically the same work as men. So they also had to struggle and to survive. And this is actually how, when the first villages they started to build, maybe in 1920, 1918, 20, like that, where actually with the boat they could come, they build their small houses, and this is actually how they were living. But while they were on the remote area, actually they used very specific strategies to develop themselves, to survive in the first place. Actually, they didn't have, obviously, the structure, the facilities, or academic education, but what they had was human capital management knowledge. Human capital is about knowledge, skills, ability, experiences that individuals have, and what they can use to create economic value. And this is something that they were managing in an excellent way. So they created their informal organizations and structures to facilitate and support each other. And they started to build inclusive communities in which they made sure that no one was left behind. And they progressed until nowadays in Paramaribo, Suriname, we have this beautiful mandir that you are looking at. So the track from poverty to progress, actually, it didn't come by itself. It is that behind the simplicity of these simple people, low educated or even not educated, they had something that human capital they had was a firm determination to improve, to grow up further. They had individual passion, solidarity with each other, hardworking, and a vision of a society and a future as the basis to build a community of progress and development. Education and knowledge became their new mantra. In 2 decades, they transformed the forest with poisonous snake and wild animal into large blooming rice fields. An above average percentage of their children have worked up their way to become highly educated professionals like engineers, lawyers, doctors, and professors. And this is not only in Suriname, because even if you go to Guyana, you go Trinidad, South Africa, Fiji, Mauritius, we see actually also in those countries that the Girmitias, their descendants, they have built their life. They have their own kind of communities in which they organize their things, and they are able actually to live generally a better life than their co-citizens in these countries. And this poverty, from this road from poverty to progress has, as I said already, a key feature was developing skills or knowledge. School was very important for them, but also boosting a positive attitude and motivating each other to work. Everybody was contributing actually to each other, based on from solidarity, self-organization, a strong degree of entrepreneurship, cooperation and collaboration structures, problem-solving attitude, agriculture as basis, and the focus on education and development. Actually, what they were also doing is they were using quite some statements to motivate each other, like Jahasampati Jahasummati Tahasampati. Where there is unity, wealth will arise. And the idea is together and united, we can achieve much more than what we can achieve individually. Another one, what they use very often, karo kasala to khao masala. It means that only what you have worked for is yours. You should not stop dreaming, start to work, and make sure you create your own life and you earn for yourself. If we look in business, then Suriname, the population of Suriname, 27% is Hindustani, and they own 80 to 85% of all companies in Suriname, and they are in many sectors. But agriculture is for sure, like rice mill, rice farming, vegetable farming, you can say is 100% in hands of Hindustani. But we have, our people have also business in civil infrastructure, in gold mining, food processing, transport, retail, vegetable business, etc. But also a lot in service companies like law firm, accounting firm, engineering, marketing company, ICT, health and medical services. And actually, I must say that entrepreneurship in Suriname is basically stagnating because there is lack of labor. We don't have enough people. Maybe we don't have much people, but we don't have much people who want to work. So that's a problem for us. If I look to the Hindustani profile, and I try to describe them, that I have tried to characterize them based on 6 points. The first thing is Hindustanis likes to live on the basis of what we call a geodetic structure. A geodetic structure is a system, in this case, a form of a society that is round and is self-supporting. So we need little outside support. We rely less on the government, but that round means we create actually little resistance. We don't want to get trouble with others. And so as such, we don't lose energy due to conflicts with others. We want to be self-reliant, self-supporting communities with own structures for community development. And we don't want to get things. We want to earn our things. And I know that other groups may experience this as we are too busy with our own kind of people. We want also an intercultural society, which is a society where multiple cultures and ethnic groups live together, but next to each other while retaining their identity, their culture, their language, etc. And I know that others may experience it sometimes as that we are close communities. We are introvert people. We are mainly focused inwardly, and we don't want to show off too much because it's not necessary. Others see us as too quiet sometimes. We want that self-realization, not focus on competition with others, but get the best out of ourselves. So my attitude is also, I want the best version of myself. I don't need to compete with others. We are also accommodating people, conflict avoidant. We stay away from rivalry and personal issues with others. We prefer rather to accommodate others rather than confronting them. And this is at least how I see that we Hindustani people have made our life from poverty to progress. And if we look now in the Netherlands, where we have now almost 160,000 Hindustanis from Suriname roots, we have established our roots for her. We are very much integrated here. We have good command of the Dutch language. We have an above average education. The Hindustanis in Netherlands are on average level better educated than the white people in Netherlands. We have a high labor participation, little problem, and we are accommodating, not confrontal. And finally, I want to show you that rice field is now being served by aeroplanes. And in the final picture I wanted to share with you is how we celebrate Holi here in the Netherlands. That's what I wanted to share with you. Thank you.
Excellent. Thank you so much, Dr. Mahadew. So
Yeah, I hope I was in time.
Yeah, just in time, actually. So we heard a lot about the right attitude, having a right attitude and treating people well.
That's right.
Yes. So, ladies and gentlemen, we would like to take your questions now. Those of you who would like to pose a question to Dr. Mahadew, feel free to raise your electronic hand. It's in the reactions button at the base of your screen. I noticed you got a thumbs up for your presentation, Dr. Mahadew, from Mr. Ramnaresh Dwarka. Well, we have a question for you from Mr. J. Nair. Welcome, Jay.
A good presentation. It reminds me of 1948, hence in South Africa with the apartheid system.
Mm-hmm.
That's exactly the principles of apartheid that you are showing as the Hindustani group in separate development.
Here. Yeah.
So that's exactly what we fought against and removed, where we wanted to be included rather than excluded. That's why in South Africa today, even up to 2024, they still have 4 different groups: the black, the white, the colored, and the black, white, colored, and Indians.
Mm-hmm.
You see, so separate development, in my book, I don't believe in. I believe in inclusivity. What did you say about that?
Yes, obviously, the way how we are, at least in Suriname, is we do both. On one side, we are fully integrated. We are talking more language than other groups. We are more economically active than other groups. We are better educated than other groups. Actually, we do everything what they do, we do also, but we do also our own things. Because certain things we do in our own language, for example, we have a community that is driven to progress, to be on the move. Whereas actually, at least in Suriname, we have other groups where people are less busy with, for example, education. And this is where actually we can have different opinions. So we create our own schools if necessary.
Yeah, just to continue on that principle that you're talking about, we also had our own schools in South Africa during indenture and after indenture. We had aided schools, we had government-supported schools. It's the same thing that you have done. But when it came to 1948, the government of the country separated us according to color, according to race.
Yeah, I was consultant in South Africa during the apartheid even.
Yeah.
I've been like 20 times to South Africa, and I know how it's structured there.
So how can you put that against your principles of the Hindus, the Hindustani? So you are trying to say that we should have a separate group?
No, I didn't say that we should have. I said that when I look to the communities around the world, especially where the Girmitias are, then you see a kind of a characteristic to that. I'm not saying that's the right thing. I'm saying this is what I observe. If I look to the Indians, for example, from now that comes to the Netherlands, to a large extent, we see exactly the same behavior. Because they have their own groups, they have their own society, because they are busy with 3 things only: work, work, work.
Right. I understand. I know where you're coming from.
Yeah.
Thank you. It's
Yes.
lovely.
Thank
We
you
can
very
have
much,
more
you all.
dialogue like that.
Thank you so much. So Mr. Dwarka also has a question for you. Go ahead, please.
Yes, very good presentation. I gave you a thumbs up. But
Thank you.
you pointed out something that is very, very, to my mind, very important, because we see it in Trinidad as well. You know, I remember growing up as a child, if the neighbors were arguing, my grandmother would say, hey, you all come inside, don't get involved. We were always insular. Once my business is going good, I don't get involved in other people's matters, not even Indian, African, or anybody else's. But to my mind, that has implications for uniting. You know, we don't protest in the Caribbean here as a group. I remember one of our prime ministers just asking Indians to go put on the lights in Port of Spain, and nobody showed up really to support it. So I think that attitude of being insular, you know, minding your own business, has implications when it comes to organized protest and you know, as a group, as a pressure group. What are your thoughts?
Yeah, that's right. But I just want to put it back also in line with the question of Mr. Nair. I'm not saying, yes, sometimes we don't open our mouth enough and we don't express what we have. But that's our nature, actually. That's our attitude. And this is something that we need to work on as a group, that we become more active, more proactive, and more we create much more unity to get certain things done, because indeed we are inclined to think, well, it doesn't matter, we will solve it ourselves, or we don't do it at all, because we are people that maybe are too quickly ready to absorb the negative sides of actually that we don't get what we deserve often, because we think, well, we facilitate ourselves.
Interesting perspective there. Thank you very much. Really appreciate your presentation today.
Thank you.
Ladies and gentlemen, we want to move on now to our third speaker. And this is Mr. Dennis Ramin. He's originally of Trinidad, currently in New York. He's the founder and executive director of Vijaya Foundation, a scientific and educational nonprofit organization which cost-effectively delivers solutions in support of global poverty and climate change effects. Welcome, Mr. Ramin. Can you unmute, please?
Okay, I think I got it there.
Yes, we're hearing you now.
Thank you very much. First of all, thank you for having me on this panel. And I really want to congratulate the ICC for all the hard work it is doing. 200 plus weekly presentations is a phenomenal milestone. I cannot impress on you how happy I am feeling for you guys for maintaining heritage and culture and promoting this kind of education amongst the global Indian diaspora. Thank you for the two previous speakers. Very, very great information that was delivered. So my name is Dennis Ramin, and I am a development practitioner. So I was trained as an environmentalist, natural resource specialist, and I have been drawn into the practice of whole system design for economic restoration and environmental restoration. So what we are dealing with here, I am working from New York in what is considered the first district in India to lower the British flag and raise the Indian flag 90 days ahead of Indian independence. Okay, this is the district of Ballia, where most of the 1857 freedom fighters originated. So this region was significantly suppressed by the British because there was a major pushback that a lot of the mutiny fighters was from this region, Balia, Ghazipur, Ara, Chapra. Okay, so if you look at the map, you would see this region. But the British stronghold on India, in terms of enslaving the people, taking their lands and enslaving the people so that they can produce opium and lavender for the global drug trade. The British was the first global drug lord participating in trading opium via Hong Kong, which resulted in the Opium Wars, which resulted in the ceding of Hong Kong, which became a British territory for a very long time. That business practice or colonial enslavement of this region drove this area to become one of the most poverty-stricken regions in the world. So when I arrived in India, in Balia, in 2009, to basically start this project, the World Bank had it plastered on its website that this is one of the most challenging areas on the planet. I mean, I'm talking about, you walk through this area, and you can show some slides, Dr. Shalima, you can show some slides. The first 10 slides there highlights the depth of poverty we are dealing with. This is not a paper exercise. This is beyond a data collection and reporting exercise. This is the reality of the harshness and the darkness of poverty that is lurking in the present day India, in the states that are dubbed the so-called backward states or underdeveloped states, Bihar and Uttar Pradesh, right? This is the region where our forefathers came from.
Okay, we're not getting your audio at this time. Dennis? Can you unmute your mic, please?
Yeah, I don't understand how the mic went back on mute. How long did I went back on mute there?
Just for a few seconds.
Oh, can you just flash the slide for the audience to see? These were
Did you send it to us?
Yeah, it's on the email. But in any regards, the work that we are doing through the Vihara Foundation is not a paper exercise. It is a practical exercise that involves whole system design. So we are on the ground, basically organizing the farmers from a state of random distribution of small farming, which basically means small farmers competing with small farmers, into structured cooperatives, which are called food producer organizations, right? So we are taking these small land holdings and we are bringing them into a structured dimension of 1 square kilometer range. And in this 1 square kilometer range, we are going to restore the soil fertility. And we are going to raise the groundwater table, and we are going to reprogram these land basic units, 1 square kilometer, into what we call structured farming arrangement. So it will no longer be random. We will basically take that 1 square kilometer, which is 100 hectares in dimension, and we are going to divide it into 25 hectare units. And inside these units would be structured crop circles. And we are going to recommission the existing World Bank tube wells that pump out like 36,000 gallons per hour. We are going to optimize that deep tube well so that we have a system of precision irrigation. And we own, our associates own proprietary technology in the area of what we call superwater, right? Which is basically a higher oxygenated water that reduces irrigation by 90% and increases productivity by 60%. And we are going to apply systems such as carbon injection for building back the microbiology in the soil system, and we are going to use a process of reforesting the areas outside the crop circle. So she's showing the slides here of the state of abject poverty. You can just flip through these slides. These are just photographs. The state of abject poverty that the people still exist, right? It is, as I said, not a paper exercise. This is a real situation of people trapped in poverty, and we are bringing real solutions. Now, what is interesting is we are also dealing with a system of climate change. So in the basic model, and you can probably go to a slide 26 or 27. In the model, right, the exercise that we have developed here in Balia is a real practical approach that has now gone global. So in working in the development sector with the community of practitioners focus on climate change and poverty. Poverty is the #1 United Nations Sustainable Development Goal, followed by hunger. Our model has now attained a level of global significance and observation. So there's a lot of emphasis on what we had went about to put this thing together, and it's the meaningfulness of the impact it will have, right? And we have now entered a new dimension of solution development, in the sense that the global community of practitioners and concerned people, which are basically wealth holders, have invited us to bring this project design into Africa to help fight poverty and hunger there. So we are going to roll out this project, not in a similar fashion, but in fine-tuned to the local context there. We are rolling out this project in South Africa. We are going to roll out this project in Democratic Republic of Congo, places like Zambia and Zimbabwe. There is now a global demand for this real work, this practical work, right? And we work with a global force, a global action force of development solutionists, technologists, process engineers, all right, and creative and innovative thinkers. So it has global footprint that is interconnected with a lot of green and innovative solutions. So we have also, because of this work also, we are now attacking what we call situations of urban poverty in America. So I am now working with the mayor's office in Los Angeles to combat urban poverty in the sense of designing solutions for the current homeless crisis that is going on there. So I thought I touched on everything. I don't need to go into much details. Some of the current innovation things that we are rolling out also is in the space of green energy, where we are bringing new systems that deliver affordable energy to economies that can basically shed its fossil fuel dependence, right? So we have an arsenal of proven and marketable concepts, and there is now a global demand for what we're doing, and we are here to serve humanity. I mean, the foundation has now created a global footprint, and I am hopeful that maybe one day we can bring some of these solutions back home to my home country of Trinidad and Tobago. So let me stop right there, and I'm open up for any questions.
All right, thank you so much, Mr. Ramdahan. Anyone with questions, kindly raise your electronic hand. I'll call you in just a second. Mr. Dwarka, go ahead, please.
Let me apologize. People might think I'm monopolizing the questions, but I don't believe in wasting time.
Thank you.
And I feel so proud of Mr. Ramdahan, a Trinidadian, doing such wonderful work. Congratulations, man.
Oh, thank you so much, sir.
Mr. Ramdahan, is that I know, as I'm a community worker, social worker by profession as well. And I know these things, implementing new strategies. Agriculture is a culture, and it is critical that the people buy in. I know farmers who grandfather and father and grandfather have done things a certain way, seed propagation and plant and all of those things. What is the buy-in like from the local communities in terms of these new methodologies that you are introducing? What's the buy-in from the local population?
That's a really great question. Without the buy-in, without the host, the community is the host. Without a host, there is no such project. So we have spent a lot of time meeting with the local communities and leadership and farmers, driving confidence. You have to drive confidence because they don't understand these concepts, and they don't understand that the current situation that they are existing in is at risk, because the water is diminishing, their soil fertility is diminishing, and they are at climate risk of flood and drought, right? And we have to play that intricate role of delivering confidence that this is good for them, that working in a cooperative fashion is going to create new wealth for them. And it has been a long, painful exercise, let's put it like this. But the delivery of the first prototype, which we are hoping to break ground pretty soon, because we are aggressively raising funds to move into that point of delivery. The delivery of the first prototype is going to drive a lot of confidence, not only to the local community, but for the global community, because only yesterday I was in Washington, D.C., and I met with folks such as from the World Bank and other institutions, and they are saying that India is at a point where we need these kinds of systems. They need scalable impact solutions.
Okay, Mr. Ramdahan, thank you very much for that. We have a question from Chan. She's asking, does the Vihara Foundation model operate anywhere in Uttar Pradesh currently?
Yeah, we're working in Ballia district.
Okay, great.
Yeah, this is not an off-the-shelf project. This project requires a lot of on-the-ground hand-holding. If you notice in some of the slides, you'll see we ran a medical clinic there, and we ran a school there to build community confidence. We treated like 100,000 patients through homeopathy medicine. These things are carried out there to build confidence, to give people in the community that we are with them, we are working with them, okay? Because they don't understand the higher dynamics of economics and finance and all these things.
Right. Okay, Jay, your question, please.
Actually, it's a double-edged question. In Canada, we have farmers actually selling off their properties and going into development and allowing for homes being built. And the children are not becoming farmers to take over. Is there any dialogue between your group and the Canadian government to bring this type of model?
Yeah, there is dialogue more in the Midwest farming sector, because the same situation is happening with Midwest United States farmers, exactly how you say what you're saying here and happening in Canada. So one of the problems in Midwest is the diminishing groundwater table. Monocrop farming, high fertilizer, high extraction of waters. So we, on our team, is a global scientist that has developed a mechanism for natural groundwater recharge, and he has brought back dry landscapes into flourishing ecosystems. And we are in discussions there with a prospect, a governorial prospect for the state of Kansas, on how we can leverage some of these proven solutions to help the farmers there restore their farms, bring back vitality, bring down cost, and all these things.
Okay, excellent. Mr. Michael Thakur, your question, please. You need to unmute.
Yeah.
Go
Thank
ahead.
you so much. I listened to this presentation. I appreciate the initiative, and clearly a lot of thought technically is going into it. But I'm always very skeptical of initiatives that come from outside and seems to, as it's presented, the presenter speaks of we are going to, we are, and I don't know if that we refers to sufficiently to the folks who are the recipients. And I also wondered who are we, one, and where is the government in this? Because I can't imagine that there is no existing measure of cooperation within such communities. As far as I understand it, many of these communities have systems of sharing resources, of sharing technical equipment, farming implements, and so forth. So is there nothing there that requires that such an initiative has to come completely from outside? Thank you.
Yeah, thank you so much. Thank you so much. That's a wonderful question. So first of all, I am not a foreigner working in India. I have been adopted by the village as a local, right? And I've lived in India. I lived in India for 3 years. I spent a lot of time in Ballia, and I'm an Indian citizen. I received my overseas Indian or PIO card, and I have identified relatives, ancestral relatives living in that region. So I visit India every year, and when I go to India, the people are very receptive of me. There is no skepticism. They do not see I have any kind of hidden agenda, or we have any kind of hidden agenda. Now, this is not a government project. This is a non-government project. We have to be very careful. We have seen many cycles of governments in India, many cycles of government in the local community. So we have to build a separation barrier between politics and this project. We cannot have this project politicized. This type of project, if it's politicized, it becomes very dangerous for the project, because if it gets on a campaign bandwagon, it can have detrimental effects. So the people understands that, and we definitely separate ourselves from any type of politicization. Now, in terms of government resources, yes, we are discussing. In fact, during Climate Week at the United Nations a few weeks ago, it was disclosed that this type of project never had a governmental financial support until now. They're realizing these types of projects are needed for the betterment of India. So they are now building finance facilities to support these types of projects. But that goes to say that we will work with the Ministry of Agriculture to access finance and show the Ministry of Agriculture how these projects are beneficial, but we will never commingle this with the politics of the day. I hope that answers your question.
Yes, indeed. Thank you very much. Mr. Ramdahan was speaking on, my question has been answered regarding government presence. Okay, so I was looking for Dr. Roseanne Kanhai at the same time as I was speaking, and she is saying that you've answered her question, Dennis. So thank you very much for that. We really appreciate your time, and we appreciate that you came in almost at the last moment with an excellent presentation. Thank you so much.
Thank you guys so much.
You're
Appreciate it.
welcome.
And thanks for all the questions. Nice questions.
You're welcome. So we'll be seeing you soon again.
Thank you.
Ladies and gentlemen, we move on now to our fourth and final speaker, and this is Dr. Nicole Besser of the USA. She's originally from Trinidad as well. She's a faculty member and subject matter expert in economics at Southern New Hampshire University. Previously, she served as an assistant professor of economics at Kent State University. Welcome, Dr. Besser.
Thank you, Bahin Shaliman. Thank you. I want to say thank you to the ICC team for accommodating me. I've had a crazy day with service and technicians at the house, so thank you very much. Dr. Kumar Kamar, I want to say thank you for all you've done and all the communication. You really kept me on the loop. I did enjoy the three presenters. Our first speaker from India, you spoke a little bit about what I'll touch on, that $2.15 a day. Our second speaker from Suriname, I also do talk a little bit about inclusivity and opportunities. And to the final speaker, I love your presentation because it's hands down on the ground, small scale, and we need more of that. So thank you. Let's get started. As Bahin Shalima said, I am an economist. So when I was first asked to do this, I was told to explore some of the neoclassical growth models. So I'm really going to do a very hybrid approach to that and spend more of the time on the second item, which is poverty, and the third item, which is on some empirical evidences. So there are three main economic models. We call them EGMs, economic growth models. The first is the Solo Swan, and Solo Swan says that economies, if given the right capital and labor proportions, they will reach some steady state or some convergent state. It has been criticized because of institutional influences and human capital hiccups in the model. And the 2024 Nobel laureate actually is won because of those institutional influences. The second is that came in the 30s and the 40s by Harold Domai. It's very, very old. It really talks about savings in, poor or low income countries, because if there's a lack of savings, it hinders investment. Well, I live in the United States and I have for about 20 years now, and we do have one of the lowest savings rates as well. And yet we are a highly developed country. So there we go on that one. And the final model, who is one of my own mentors from when I lived in the Caribbean, was Sir Arthur Lewis. I never met Dr. Lewis. He was way gone before I started school. He is a Joint Prize and Nobel Laureate in 1979 for development economics. And the Lewis model is very simple. And the third speaker alluded very much to agriculture. And I believe Mr. Dwarika talked about agriculture as a culture. Well, that's technically what Dr. Lewis was talking about. He was talking about, we have these two defined sectors, one that we call like a traditional or agriculture sector, more subsistence level, and it has this unlimited supply of labor. And then we have this modern sector, which is what we see right now, and we're even more modern now with an AI culture. And if we were to transfer some of the surplus labor into this modern sector, we will be able to see growth. Has any of them worked? Really and truly, in some bits and pieces, and we'll see as I go along why and how. Countries and nations differ by social, geographic, demographic, and linguistics. And when we take into account the Indian diaspora, there's even more of that. I'm not going to spend too much time on this graph. I just want you to pay attention to the green and the pink. The green are countries that are more upper middle income or more developed countries, and the pink are those that are really impoverished countries. Our first speaker, Dr. Kamar from India, spoke about that $2.15 per day estimate. And I don't know how many of us in front of me can live on $785 US a year. I spend that on 2 tires for my car. So I'm not even sure how somebody can live on that. But that is what that $2.15 per day of extreme poverty boils down to. And I would like you to know that figure was changed in 2022, just 2 years ago during the pandemic. It used to be $1.90 a day. I have highlighted a few countries because we do have some members in the audience in front of us from these countries. And I would love to report that in 2023, since my big brother Ashok Ramsaran is on here, and I was living in Guyana last year, in 2023, just last year, Guyana actually moved from a middle income to a high income, from a low middle income to an upper middle income country because of the oil resource. So in just 1 year, you can have a huge transition if you discover natural resources, which I thought was phenomenal. Trinidad is considered to be a high income country as well as the United States. And that leaves, that leaves some conversation out there for you. One of the things that I do focus a lot on after having obtained my doctorate and living in Africa and, developing models to study corruption is the role of institutions. And I thought this map was really, really cool. It is a map looking at 10 global risk scenarios. It came out this year earlier by the Economic Intelligence Unit. It is the sister organization of The Economist. And if you notice, the war in Ukraine has really changed things. It has changed things here in the US. We have huge supply shocks. We have an inflationary pull. The US just went into we just got elected a new president. There is some shifts in foreign policy and some shifts in alliances that would occur with that as well. The global interest rate is too high. The Fed just lowered rates here in the US and it affects everybody. As economists love to say, when the United States sneeze, everybody catches a cold in the world. So these are also some things here that, you can read. I know the slide is kind of busy, that we also need to consider when we think about moving from poverty to progress. There are 4 key elements as to why a country might be considered poor or, way above that $2.15 per day. Lack of access, economic, political, and social issues. Health, mental health has recently grown, and of course, cyclical poverty. And this is something that I'm not sure if, I believe the first speaker did sort of mention that vicious circle of poverty. And it is something we do teach in development economics. Like if you're born poor, then you continue being poor because you just lack the resources and you lack the access. And it's hard to get out of it. So what are the things that can move a country from poverty to progress? And I do have some empirical evidence both at the macro, the big country level, and also at a micro, very small level. And some of what our third speaker, I'm not sure if you're a doctor, I'm just going to call you Dr. Ramdahin was speaking about, that irrigation system that he's working on. One of them is education. And this is, I do have data on this for Guyana as well. And it goes far back to childhood education, those formative years. The second is community level improvements. What does each community need? And as you saw with the third speaker, there's a lot of him studying what that community needs. He can't just go into another district in India and it's the same irrigation system. He would have to modify it. And he sort of alluded to that. Nutrition assistance. I love this chickpea example, and I'll talk a little bit about that. I mean, we're Indians, we love chickpeas, right? It's like our second staple food after potatoes. Sanitation, irrigation, infrastructure. Living in Guyana last year, one of the biggest issues was infrastructure. To cross the bridge from the east to the west took It took 2 hours, which is ridiculous for a 10-mile drive. That shouldn't be the case. Our colonial history do influence us. Governance, institutions, and a strong currency. And finally, trade, tariffs, and investments. These are just highlights. Each one, we can spend days and days talking about it. But these are the six items that can move a country from poverty to progress. Can it be done overnight? Well, if you discover oil, it probably could. Otherwise, it's going to take you a longer time. So here I have 4 successful stories at a macro level, so at a big scale level. You notice the United States is also there. And these were stories that worked for each one of those countries. Next to each country, I have a bracket. That bracket represents how many Indians from the Indian diaspora or Indian ancestries living there. The largest of them is the United States. And I'm not saying that because I live in the US, it just happened to be that case. So 5.4 million Indians reside here in the US. The US introduced an income and nutrition assistance, which lifted 46 million people. 10 million of those 46 were children out of poverty. And one of the things I do at a university and what I'm known for is in my syllabus, each term I teach, I tell my students where they can get a food bank to get free food assistance. Because I know it's a shameful topic to talk about. But if people aren't healthy, there's no way they're going to be able to work. There's no way they're going to lift themselves out of it. In Ethiopia, there was a new chickpea variety, and it is estimated to lift 0.7 million people out of poverty in 30 years. So it's getting there, but you got to remember, if you're a meat-eating nation, you might not like chickpeas. You might have to find some nice masala recipes out there, or some nice falafel recipes, something to, spice it up and make people like the flavor. In Sri Lanka, and some of what your third speaker was talking about, they were very successful in raising poverty, in reducing persons who live below the poverty line from 57% to 43% by having a new irrigation project system. And in Guyana, this one came up from speaking to 2. One of them is a current member in parliament right now there. And the second one is an advisor to the National Security Minister. She's also a pundit like myself. And she just got her master's, as did the other minister. And it is a new initiative that the Guyanese government has implemented. They've discovered oil. They found that we have to develop our skill set, our human capital, back to our Solo Swan and Haraduma models, as well as we also need to, because education is one of those things we call a merit good. It gives itself to generations to come, not just to the current generation. We've all heard about microfinance. I'm going to skip the slide just in the interest of time. The thing in red is really what I want you to pay attention to. If you might be a small enterprise out there, there are resources available to you, and they are in red. I can give these slides to the members of the ICC after. So let's look at the nice success stories. And I love these because I live in developing countries. I like to go off the grid, and I do like to work with people. So this is Chandrawati, and she has a book in her hand. She is from Madhya Pradesh in India, and she secured a 30,000 rupee loan. It helped her to escape a vicious circle of poverty because she was just paying for her child and paying for medical bills and just couldn't get out of poverty at all. And this loan helped her to do that. What did this woman also do? She bought 7 cows and she bought 1 buffalo, and she was able to start a small dairy business. In addition to that, she diversified her portfolio. Yeah, she used standard MBA terms we use in college. This woman learned that. She diversified her portfolio and she started selling children's clothing. So she's getting various income sources. One of the success stories. Here we have Jacqueline. She's from Rwanda. She was featured as a female entrepreneur in something called Meet the CEO. She turned $100 where she was able to distribute that $100 to 8 people. And this is all in US currency. She secured a second loan for $200 and she was able to buy a sewing machine. She actually employs 15 people full-time in a small business, in a small sewing business. And that's Jacqueline here on the right, standing smiling. How great is that? Here is William. He was able to expand his butchery business with small loans as well. And, you know, sometimes you're just stagnant. You have a business. He'd been there for 20 years, but he wasn't able to get it to the next level. And he was able to get it to the next level. I love this couple. Here's the husband and wife on the right. There's the husband, which is Sam, and Maxicia on the bottom. And you see she's spraying her trees there. And this is their bollock. They actually got something called a living loan. A living loan is where they were granted one cow. And that cow was able to produce. And they were able to enhance their farming efforts and create more sustainability. And this is something I spend a lot of time on when I'm also in India, is working with cows and small farmers. And I have a few more stories from Marinama. I have Yu Mao, and these are her broom. She has a business. She's appeared on the Global Times just in May of this year. I have Basan Pagam in Mongolia. She opened one of the third largest bakery shops. I have this lady, I can't pronounce this name. She's from Sri Lanka and she's busy on her woodworking business. And then there was another person in Rwanda. She was able to improve her grocery store and become a mobile banking agent. So education, facilities, small bits of money, just having the know-how, they were able to go to different places. And I love this story. This is an American story of a 4-year-old girl. She was stung by a bee twice in 1 week. She didn't just cry and moan about it. She made lemonade out of lemon. She literally made lemonade using this honey from the bees that stung her. And she is now sold worldwide she's sold nationally here in the United States. Her name is Michaela, and she actually wrote a book. So, and I say this to you, there's no one way to solving poverty. It is a multifaceted, multidimensional approach. And I think by first understanding what your limitations are, the direction you want to go on, and what resources would be available will help countries, nations, people of the Indian diaspora to be able to get there. And with this, I say my namaste and thank you.
Thank you so much. Ladies and gentlemen, if you have any questions for Dr. Besser, please go ahead, raise your electronic hands. As we said before, it's in the reactions button at the base of your screen. Okay, so Mike, go ahead, please.
Hi, thank you so much for thank you so much for that presentation. But as I listened to it, which is quite helpful, I asked myself, how would one apply this to these interesting frameworks to what may have allowed for these folks who went as indentured workers in these countries from India to transition to the progress that they've achieved, and if have they not followed these general things that one is characterizing? Have they not sought to use education? Have they, to what extent have they not shared the resources? Have they, built institutions and taken initiative? You know, in my own small community in rural Jamaica where I grew up, I was told that rice farming in Jamaica started there. It was the Indians who brought that technology and shared it with the plantation owners to say, look, if you grow rice, you could actually use it to feed the cattle. And it became an important element of rice production that then spread across the island. So I'm trying to say that some of these initiatives, it's always nice to look back and cross-cut and say these things work here and there and so forth. But the question is, have people not done these things?
I'm pretty sure they have by Takur. I love your question because it's something we call lip service. We can say it, we can have it, but when they actually go in, so in the case of the Indian woman, Chandrawati, she actually joined a microfinance woman's group and they were able to help her. Some of the forms are really complex, some of the bureaucracy and the red tape. And I love that you mentioned Jamaica. I assume you still live in Jamaica, the country of 4 golden booms and 4 golden recessions as well.
No, I don't.
You do not. So one of the one of the big things with a nation like Jamaica.
I'm actually a retired economist.
No way.
But I don't want to talk about that.
We can talk for days about that for sure. Yeah. So
what is saying that is more important to me. Yeah.
I don't think it's just access or it's just education. Sometimes it's the right person. It's being in the right network as well. And it's also not knowing. So it really is a case by case story. And your third speaker is probably right on. India's biggest issue, despite their huge boost in manufacturing boom right now, and each one of their states being able to be independent, they were the only country to get out of the pandemic. It's a case by case study. It really is. If you go from Haryana to Delhi or to Madras, each one to Mathura, sorry, each one is different in the way they dress, the way they eat, and how they process. And I saw those differences living there. And I see those differences here in the US. Midwest, I could not live in the Midwest. It's just a very backward culture. And I was in Chicago a couple of weeks ago. I happened to meet a Black gentleman who was, he was a business owner, but he talked about the struggles. And he said, wow, you're so lucky. If I was in New York, I would have been able to get further ahead much faster because there's less red tape with certain things because of the color of his skin and mine. And, this does happen at the ground level.
Noted. Okay, thank you very much. Let's move on now to another question. Somashekar, go ahead, please.
Yeah, thank you. Can you hear me, please?
Yes, we're hearing you.
Thanks for all the 4 speakers and especially Dr. Nicole Besser to say that she has summed up rightly of all the other 3 speakers also. But before I ask a question, I just wanted to highlight to the other 3 speakers, second, third, and fourth, that in Karnataka there is a person called Virendra Hegde. He, from almost 40 to 50 years, he has started the skill development, and he has started that, as Dr. Nicole said, that microfinancing. So there is one more in Maharashtra, Anna Hazare also. He actually brought a reform in groundwater retention and thereby entire development of the villages around. So I don't know that these other 3 speakers have gone to these 2 states or not, but there is tremendous reforms based on these 2 gentlemen. So I would like request other 3 people if they go to India to have a look and then just see what the other 2 gentlemen are doing. And my question is actually, see, whenever Indians, irrespective of religion, when they go outside the country, they do very well because that swavalam, self-respect is there. And they want to show that they're really very good compared to other people. And then they have to establish themselves and build up a reputation for themselves and the family, because the family culture is very important to us. And we go out and prove ourselves. Because we don't want any of our parents to feel ashamed of our being there in any other country and not doing well. So compared to that, right from 1860 or whatever that year the people went there in other countries. So what I just like to know from other 2 gentlemen and 1 lady now, what percentage of improvement there is compared to the existing living conditions in India from the time, not exactly during 19th century, maybe in 20th century also, taking the account into recent one. So would you like to say that there is a lot of improvement in other countries in the Indian diaspora than in our own country? Thank you. The question is for all 3, second and third and fourth, if they are there.
May I respond to that, Dr. Besser?
Gee, you live there. You probably should.
What we are observing, right, as I told you, I am working with the mayor, directly with the mayor of Los Angeles. What we have seen in the last 20 years, 25 years, is systems failure in economics that is resulting in the birth of a new era of poverty, urban poverty, right?
Mm.
A lot of homelessness, lack of affordable housing, a lot of hunger in America. Come on, I mean, it bewilders me. Why are we transitioning in a backward direction when we should be moving forward? So these are great lessons learned for the once greatest country in the world, India, that was exploited and plundered, right? We need to observe what's happening in this quote unquote modern America that is now confronting all these hardship issues, and we need to factor these things in our new economic model, so we do not have the same level of situation that would put us at risk. So Guyana, with all its oil wealth, also should be looking at this very carefully. And a lot of these Caribbean nations, that is moving in the direction of development needs, need to be very, very careful. I know they say when America sneezes, everybody catches a cold. Well, America is sneezing right now, and that's not the kind of cold we want to catch. So I just wanted to throw that out there. And one more thing I wanted to say is there is prospect for new economic models. There is prospect. There's a lot of wealth. I mean, if people push efficiency, right, systems thinking and efficiency, you can generate wealth. You can get out of poverty. These are the lessons I am learning and observing.
Excellent, Dennis. Thank you very much for that. We'll take a question now from Mr. Ramnaresh Dwarka. And then we'll take Dr. Tara Singh. Mr. Dwarka, go ahead, please.
Hello.
Yes.
Thank you very much. There's a tendency, because something was old, and if we go back to it, it seems to be a retrograde step. But various cultures have developed systems of coping. And as I mentioned before, agriculture in particular is a culture. So there were built-in methodologies. For instance, the living model, the life loan that Dr. Besser described is what we used to call in Trinidad giving a cow in half. You give a cow to someone else, they rear it until it has a young, then they keep it until they get the milk, and then they rear it till it gets pregnant, and then they give it back to the owner. And now they have a cow to start their business. In marriages, cows were given as a kanyadan, as a gift. You understand, to start a new family. So every culture had these little things for mediation rather than expensive court matters. We had the panchayat system. We have Mahesh Ji in Jhabua in India, Mr. Ramdahin, who is terracing, getting a lot of people to terrace the mountain, the sides of the hills, to save and keep the water and send it underground and have it run off the top. These are all methods that were there and could be still used. And I'm saying it more likely for the population to buy into these things, which were already there. But we are losing. Our young people in Trinidad can't tell a cucumber seed from a muskmelon seed. We are losing the ability to preserve seeds and keep it to plant. We don't know how to grow things anymore. Some of us don't even know how to break bhaji and to start a meal. We could only buy it from the shelf. So I think we need to start looking at those, because agriculture, again, is what will feed us and sustain the whole world. I just wanted to say that. It's not much of a question, but it's a comment.
We appreciate it. Thank you very much. I'm so glad I can tell the difference between a cucumber seed and a melon seed. Dr. Tara Singh, let's take your question, please.
Thank you. I want to make a comment before in 2019, the World Bank did a study and said that Guyana had a poverty rate of 48%. They based that on the assumption that the livable wage per person is $5.50. Now that has been increased recently. I think it was 2022 to $6.86 per person, a livable wage. Now, since then, within 3-4 years of this PP government, they have reduced poverty significantly by empowering people at every level: education, job, healthcare, and all these things. They're building infrastructure. So now, from 2019 to 2024, the poverty has declined by more than 50%. And some people believe that in another 2 or 3 years, it might go to single digits. Now, we cannot eradicate poverty. In no country in the world, poverty could be eradicated. In America, which is supposed to be one of the richest countries in the world, the poverty level is 11%, and the city of New York is over 20%. And they have been in existence for so many years. What the Guyana government is doing, they're taking all money, invested in the budget. 30% of the budget is coming from our revenues, and they will provide it into education and all these housing, etc. So there are lots of people now being lifted out of poverty in Guyana. I hope that some economists or somebody will do a study now to measure it, because so far the Statistical Bureau is supposed to do some study, but I don't believe they've done. Now, the last speaker raised some very interesting points. She's correct that poverty got to be dealt with in a multi-factorial approach. It's just not one, they're a combination, and that's exactly what the Guyana government is doing. I cannot comment on other countries because I have not studied what model they're doing. But it's more or less like a comment, but I want to commend all the speakers for their excellent presentation.
Wonderful. Thank you so much, Dr. Singh. Darrell Sugdeo, go ahead, please. We have just a few minutes left for the program.
Hello, yeah, I just wanted to add to what Dennis was saying, Vijaya Foundation. Here in North America, what I have seen is that for the vast population, everybody's just for themselves. There's no sense of community, except, of course, for the nonprofit community where everyone comes together and work. But right here in Richmond Hill in New York, we have 40,000 West Indians in the community right here, and there's less than 1,000 who are active in the nonprofit community. Dr. Tara can back me up on that, but people mostly, and I would think this extends to the global north, people just are for themselves. There's no sense of community or working together to achieve efficiency or anything else. So I think that is one of the major barriers to improvement. I really have no solutions on how to solve the problem, but I'm saying that's what I've been seeing throughout. I don't know if anyone else wants to chime in on that.
Thanks. Let's get Dr. Besser in on that.
So I agree. You know, one of the things too is while each one of them was given their comments, I was thinking about this when I was in Rajasthan last year. And I guess I'll say that before I get to Richmond Hill or South Ozone here in Queens. When I was in Rajasthan, the Central University of Rajasthan has a huge farming area. They have a huge ground, and they allocated so many acres to women that were widows, because it is known in the Indian community that woman, once your husband dies, unless he has a brother who is alleged, happens to be single and available and would marry you, you really don't have much of anything going for you after that. So these widows would come and work on this land. And I was there to give a 2-day speech on sustainability and economic growth for Rajasthan itself. And we allowed the women to plant vegetables, any kind of subject they can think of. And they were able to give it back to the cafeteria at the Central University, where professors like myself and resident faculty, we were able to get, vegetables from the farm right there, as well as at the 2-day conference, if they made any trade, any crafts, they were able to sell it, and the money belonged to the woman. The university doesn't take it. They just get the land for free. That's really it. I thought it was such a great initiative because it showed working beyond our selfish self, as the last commenter just said, to something else. In South Ozone, it is a very, very interesting situation. I was born in Trinidad, but I'm not accepted by West Indians. I'm accepted by Guyanese in New York. And I identify with any culture that they want me to be in, to be honest with you. But the Guyanese community is a little bit more friendly towards me. And the Indian community, the Desi community is as well. And I don't say this to mean any malice towards any person. My parents are Trinidadians, of course. My sisters are Trinidadian. In the US, we tend to facilitate a culture of consumerism, and not so much one of savings, and not so much of giving back, or not so much of helping. And I'm also in that generation of being between a younger and an elder generation because of my age. And my friends my age are just not nice to me because they're just too fashionable. If they go, they do charity or they give something, if there isn't a Facebook, or there isn't an Instagram, or there isn't a TikTok video, they don't want to do it. And it is a world we live in. We're just going by these points of things that we think we should be doing because it builds our popularity. But deep down, the sense of education in the West is very far-fetched from that holistic, yogic, Patanjali approach that is in India. And that's why I spend most of my time living in India and spending some time here. And when I'm in New York, I'm on a farm. I work with kids who have autism and they're on the spectrum because they are the nicest people to work with. And I teach them how to spot a cucumber seed from a watermelon seed. My students do know how to do that. It's just such a topic. Wow, I could talk on this all day.
I'd love to have you do that. Unfortunately, it is now 5:02, and we would need to wrap up soon. Dr. Mahadew is giving me an indication that we absolutely need to wrap up. So, ladies and gentlemen, I'm seeing that we still have 3 hands up, but Mr. Somashekar, you've already gotten an opportunity to speak. Let me just take Mr. Ganga Das because he hasn't been able to speak as yet. So would you mind, we'll just take our last question comment very quickly from Mr. Ganga Das. Mahadew is giving me an indication that we absolutely need to wrap up. So ladies and gentlemen, I'm seeing that we still have hands up, but Mr. Somashekar, you've already gotten an opportunity to speak. Let me just take Mr. Ganga Das because he hasn't been able to speak yet. So would you take the last question from Mr. Ganga?
Thank you, Dr. Besser, for structure. Can you hear me?
Yes, but Mr. Ganga Das, you seem to have 2 devices on.
Can you hear me?
Turn off, please.
So thank you very much for a well-structured presentation, Dr. I'm interested in contribution and growth.
I think his bandwidth is low.
Model.
Okay, ladies and gentlemen, I'm really sorry about that. Unfortunately, Mr. Ganga Das is not coming across very clearly. And so, Mr. Somashekar, you were very anxious to raise your question. Let's just take it very quickly, please.
Yeah, thank you, Shalimar. I just wanted to say one thing that I wanted to reply from Dr. Nicole. And before she answers the question, I just wanted, I put it in the chat also that why it's a good idea to meet all the speakers at a time in India somewhere so that we can take things further. And before she answers my previous question, I just want to leave you all with a quote by the first Home Minister of India, Sardar Vallabhbhai Patel, who said, "I know only one culture, and that is agriculture." Thank you.
Excellent. Thank you. Nicole, do you want to respond to him about having a conference in India?
I am, yes, Haji.
Without a doubt. Okay, Mike, let's just have it really quickly and then we close. Michael Thakur?
Yeah.
Please unmute again.
I just want to quickly say one thing. Two things really. One is that the global economic order for some time has been based on a very liberal system, which facilitated freedom or was the proponents of which have been to liberalize economic structures and facilitate global trade and global capital flows. What has happened essentially is that the system has resulted in global imbalances where the gainers and losers, the winners in such systems have been many, and they have been mainly in the financial sectors and in the urban centers globally. But in the rural parts of many countries, particularly in agricultural sectors, it has not resulted in many gains. And it has created a lot of disenchantment and resentment for that economic system. And it is essentially a system that is now, the flashback against it is essentially what you're seeing being capitalized upon by many people who are nativistic in their outlooks in political leadership. And this is actually at the core of which is why you probably have to find a structure which allows for some allowance for government structures and some level of protection and strong state systems which are transparent and well functioning, as perhaps we've seen in some of the Asian countries. And without that, you will continue to have this resentment for the liberalized system that we have. And indeed, you will have failures in agriculture, because the successes in agriculture in the countries that are actually overwhelming those that can't succeed are based on subsidies. And so you have to find ways in which you respond to this in a way which does not itself gets too driven by corruption. The second point I'd quickly like to make is that in this new age where there are really no more worlds to exploit, the whole global system is actually interdependent. And you can't exploit one area of the globe without it causing dislocation environmentally elsewhere. So what we now have is a need to consider a global economic system which is more dependent on cooperation, and the interdependency is going to have to supersede that which is the competitive regimes that we've had for the last 2 or 3 centuries. And I wanted to just quickly say this. It will take a lot of thinking and discussion of this matter, but it translates in many levels, even in the issues of, as Guyana would face now, of what is considered or called Dutch disease phenomenon, where one large sector, that is the oil sector, will actually overwhelm the rest of the economy and suck resources away from agriculture unless and until the government makes some explicit effort to protect such sectors in a transparent and decent way. So I just wanted to leave the discussion with that framework in my mind, and also a need for a global thinking to review and actually take leadership in how you measure economic activity, not on the basis of gross domestic product, but on the basis of a net domestic product that takes account of the actually depletion of environmental resources in this new interdependent and cooperative world that has to happen. And unless it is led, it is going to be, we will continue to be at a race for who has higher gross domestic product, when actually you're depleting forests and natural resources at the same time. So I'll stop with that. But my point is to trigger some discussion and thought on it. Thank you.
Excellent, excellent way to end, Michael. I want to thank you very much for raising those points and for sort of summarizing everything that we've kind of talked about today and the importance of moving forward with this discussion. Ladies and gentlemen, unfortunately, we are out of time. I want to say thank you very much to all of you for being here with us today, and most especially to our 4 speakers. We did have Mr. Bob Gopi as a speaker. Unfortunately, he was unable to make it at the last moment. And so we really appreciate all our 4 speakers today. At this point, I'll turn you all over now to Shakira. Thank you.
Thank you, Shalama, and thank you all for taking the time to attend and to participate. As we've said earlier, this public meeting is being hosted by the Indo-Caribbean Cultural Center, and today we have been pleased to be supported by Kamala and Dr. Botiwari, and thank you all so very much. Feel free to contact the ICC to publish your books, and remember, we are kindly asking for you to give us your suggestions. If you give a donation, your name will be placed on our poster and all promotional materials, and you can contact Dr. Mahadew for details. Our topic next Sunday will be the Indo-South African freedom fighter, Billy Nair. So please, we look forward to having that program, and please join us. And we want to thank all of those who have participated and assisted us with this program: Daryl Gransam, Navin Mangal, Ravin Ramsingh, and Miriam Mohammed. So please visit, like, and subscribe to our YouTube channel to see all our past recordings. I am Shakira Mohammed from Trinidad and Tobago saying goodbye. May God bless you all. Dhanyavad.
Thank you all for joining and staying until this hour. If there are any short, I must emphasize, short burning question or comment, you are free to make that now because we are past our closing time. So anybody has, Daryl has some question. Chand, if Ashok wants to say anything, you are free.
I
Ramesh?
just wanted to chime in and say I disagree with Mr. Michael. He's advocating for the status quo. We've seen over the last at least 50 years that I've been alive